The big word is all about prevention. Everyone's goal of health is to not be sick, but I think we actually have it wrong. I really think that the definition of health is someone that is more resilient and more adaptive to anything that they experience in life. You're learning how your body can adapt in those extreme environments. And you get better and better over time, which means that you're getting more and more resilient over time. Can you imagine the most important thing in your life to amplify all the things that make you more resilient, make you more connected, is just through learning how to control your actions and how to take care of yourself? No one today is teaching you that.
What does the future of wellness look like? How do we take care of ourselves? What does it even mean to be healthy? Today, you're going to meet someone guiding that conversation, someone who's had this vision for how to take care of yourself, how to level up your health, how to optimize, if you will. I'm super hyped to introduce you to a friend, someone that I've appreciated his journey from near and afar. Please meet entrepreneur, athlete, and founder of Remedy Place, Dr. Jonathan Leary. How are you today, sir?
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, man, we've been talking about this for a minute. We finally got on the mic, and we're here in one of your multiple locations of Remedy Place. How's it feel to launch? Boston is the most recent location?
Incredible. You know, it's exciting as we've been building this. I've been working on it since 2012. And the Boston Club, I really feel, is the brand at its fullest expression. And I'm so excited that the response has been so well, and to enter in a new market that's really close to home has been really special for me.
Because you're from Rhode Island.
Rhode Island, yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking a bit before this about what it means to be healthy. And what people see on the outside isn't necessarily indicative of what's on the inside. What is your definition of health?
Yeah, I think right now, the big word is all about prevention, right? You know, everyone's goal of health is to not be sick. As long as you're not sick, you're healthy. As long as you're active, you're healthy. But I think we actually have it wrong. You know, I really think that the definition of health is someone that is more resilient and more adaptive to anything that they experience in life. And I think, listen, life's stressful. We have a lot of things going on. We're exposed to a lot. And I think aging is a result of stress. And I think how we handle stress is correlated to how fast we age. And that's all aging is. It's adapting to stress. The less that you can adapt to stress, the faster you're going to age. And the healthier you are, you're going to be able to be more resilient to anything you're exposed to. And I think right now people are focusing on avoidance. Because of that, that's leading to us becoming weaker and weaker, which is actually quite interesting.
How do you define resilience then?
Yeah, I mean, I think of simple things like, I think what most people understand is going to a gym, you know, working out. We all know how important that is. We're using an external resistance to legitimately tear our muscle fibers to then become stronger. But people know that working out is good. That's how you grow muscle. That's how you become stronger. That's how you can move better. If you take that philosophy and think of how you're doing that with everything else, think of your immune system. I'm going on a flight in 2 hours. Some people would think, oh, I need to make sure I'm wiping down my seat. I need to make sure I have a mask on. All great, because you're cleaning your environment. However, what they're not thinking about is, how do I strengthen my immune system so that I'm going to be exposed to bacteria and viruses all day? There's no way that I'm going to be in an environment that doesn't have that. So for me, I'm like, all right, what am I doing to build my internal defense system? And there's so many ways, nutritionally and lifestyle-wise, that I know that I can make my immune system more resilient. A lot of people care about beauty and health, and they spend so much money on facials and different treatments for their skin. Or, you know, they have like a 30-minute, regimen at the end of the day with all these creams and lotion. But I'm like, what's more important? All the topical things doing the surface level healing, or is it to be so healthy that you're going to actually radiate and have healthy skin just because you're healthy? And I think if you start thinking about everything in life in that way, it's really interesting. The more that I've really dived into like cold plunge and saunas, obviously that's a big part of Remedy. I'm thinking of it as, we've always called it adaptation training, right? You're putting your body in an extreme situation, extreme hot, extreme cold. The beauty is not the extreme hot or the extreme cold. The beauty is that you're learning how your body can adapt in those extreme environments. And you get better and better over time, which means that you're getting more and more resilient over time. So then I start thinking about everything that we offer in Remedy, and I'm like, I actually could consider everything here a stressor. In a hyperbaric chamber, we are pushing more oxygen in your body. That we have a Remedy roller. It's an automatic foam rolling device, or think of like a massage. Like that's pressure going into your body to be able to then lengthen your muscles to be able to move better. Chiropractic adjustment. You're pushing through a joint capsule and releasing pressure, thrusting through that joint capsule to increase range of motion so that you can move better. An acupuncture needle penetrating through your skin throughout your whole entire body to connect the dots so that your body is connected. And I'm like, oh, have we been thinking about health wrong the whole time? Where it's really about there's so many ways we can stimulate their external stressors to become more resilient. And I just find it so fascinating because, we've always been told stress is bad.
Yeah.
A lot of stress is bad, but moderate stress, clinically proven, will enhance memory and enhance performance. So we've known that. And I think because life has gotten more and more stressful, because there's a lot going on in the world, all of a sudden stress is this bad thing that we're all trying to avoid. And I'm like, we should try to eliminate what isn't serving us. But at the same time, how are we using all of these stressors to be stronger so we can come out the other side better than we've ever been?
I love the perspective because it's needed. A lot of people avoid and run from their problems instead of running towards fear. And my background in endurance sports and how I like to kind of push the needle a little bit more than necessary. And a big part of how I define resilience is suffering strategically managed. And it's this concept of slowly introducing stress into your life, for not looking at one massive marathon problem situation as this like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Instead, it's how am I going to take that first step? And then how am I going to take the next step after I've taken that first step, and just managing accordingly. And when you talk about stress and slowly introducing it into your life in order to grow, in order to adapt, people are afraid. They have this fear that prevents them from stepping into a better version of who they are. As someone who's built a business and is continuing to ascend and kind of guiding this guiding this conversation around social wellness, I'm sure you got a lot of pushback on the ideas because, as they were building out Boston, you were talking about they need to redefine certain health codes or build out new codes because they don't fully understand what's going on over here. With all this pushback that you've received as you're building out Remedy Place, how have you managed your mindset in going forward with an idea that may not be received well by the public?
Yeah, I think one of the best pieces of advice that I got early on was just be okay with being misunderstood. If you're not following a traditional path or you're not doing something ordinary that people can relate to, that's okay because no one's going to get it. But that's what innovation is. When any new concept or any new thing is created, it would make sense that people don't get it. Your job is to then be a better communicator, simplify things, make it applicable, and put it in layman's terms. And I think it's so important because I'm in my life trying to ever change and ever grow, and I think it's really important for me because I grew up in such a small town that professionally and personally, I get one life here and I want to be able to be the best version of myself. In order to do that, that means I need to constantly grow. If I need to constantly grow, that means I need to constantly change and evolve. And I think change is uncomfortable. And change only happens when you're better than your environment. So my understanding when I'm reflecting is you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable always. And if you want to break from that, then slow down. But I'm never gonna slow down. I really think that I found something that is my passion and my purpose that is making impact, that is creating this really big movement that's happening faster than I ever thought. And listen, I work a lot and I think some people might not understand that. But once again, it's misunderstood because this is my purpose, passion. It's what makes me happy. It's what makes me healthy. It allows me to constantly connect with new people, which I think is the most important thing for our health. And I'm constantly challenged. And I think if I didn't have Remedy, that would be a really hard thing because I wouldn't have the thing that I think is driving me forward as fast as it is.
Now, this conversation around stress, resilience, adaptability, how do you start thinking about the problem in this way in terms of growth?
I think mindset first. I always talk about like what the foundational pillars of health are that anyone has access to. It's really about just teaching them to make sure that they understand how to do it. One of them is the mental side. And the mental side, most people just think meditation and breath work, which is so powerful and needed. But I think it's also about really learning how to perfect the way that you think and the way that you talk and perfect how to really understand what intentions are. So what I would always work on with patients is teaching them how to talk. And I know this sounds funny, but starting with pain, for example, pain isn't a thing. Pain is a signal, right? So it's really important, in psychosomatic, which I don't know if people understand what that is like a thought can cause a reaction or a symptom. And there's always a mental component to everything that we're doing inherently. So if I woke up every day, or say it was a patient that woke up every day, and for 10 years they had chronic back issue, they wake up every single day and say, oh, my back's a mess. I'm in so much pain. This is just a chronic issue. And then probably the topic of a lot of their conversations is I have a chronic back issue. When they come to me, oh, Dr. Leary, my back's killing me. It's acting up. So the first thing that I worked on with them is teaching them how to talk about pain. And this is really interesting because I would say like, all right, movement cures pain. If things are properly moving, you can't be in pain. If the biomechanics are off or not perfected, that's where pain will result. So I would say, all right, that movement cures, and that today I will get you moving better. So what does that mean? And they would say that my pain would start to dissipate or go away. So then I would say, okay, so when you wake up in the morning, what are you going to tell yourself? And then I would teach them to say, today I just need to get my back moving better. And then they would know either I or they would get their back moving better. So then it starts building this connection in the brain of constant, like this new circuit of also confirmation that they know the solution. And it's still saying that their back doesn't feel good, but they know they're saying what the solution is and then building that circuit in the brain. And then for things that are more practical for everyone that's listening, stress. Like I just told you earlier that we go to the gym to use weights to tear our muscles to be stronger. And I think of stress as that. I think of stress as the word resistance. But if I know resistance makes me stronger, if you ask me, John, you must have so much on your plate, that I can't imagine the amount of stress you're under, I would say, oh yeah, I'm feeling a lot of resistance, but I know that this resistance is going to make me strong. And once again, it's changing that mindset. And you can do that with almost any word that isn't serving you or any word that isn't enhancing you. It doesn't mean you're not supposed to feel these things. It's very important to feel all things, but learning how to change your mindset on all of those is extremely important.
Reframing and shifting that internal dialogue to help guide more meaningful and external, you're right, to help guide more meaningful conversations, because the voice that we have in our head, I mean, that's the most powerful one. That's the one that we have to hear all of the time. And if we don't know how to articulate accordingly or communicate accordingly with ourselves, positive self-talk can create incredible. I was just reading in Shift by Dr. Ethan Cross how to speak to yourself positively. Now, I'm a big proponent of positive self-talk in general. Obviously, as an athlete, as a person, I understand the value in it. But there's this idea of speaking to yourself positively in a way where you're distancing yourself from yourself. So it's like a third-party perspective. And I spoke to high-performance psychologist Dr. Michael Gervais about this, where the whole idea is when you're going through some resistance, if you will, you want to refer to yourself either as you or as your name. So, Jonathan, you got this, one step at a time, instead of I got this, I'll be okay. Separating yourself so you can see yourself outside yourself to help you get through the thing. And the reason I bring this up is because the power of reframing and communicating is extremely important, especially in today's day and age where it feels like all of our words can get misconstrued to mean something else, and we have to say what we mean and mean what we say. As you've built this out, isolation is a topic that comes up quite a lot when it comes to the antithesis of community.
Yeah.
And the remedy for isolation is community in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. How have you prioritized community as a focal point for remedy place and in your own life?
If I said 10 years ago in my practice, human connection's the most important thing for your health, people wouldn't have taken me serious. As an alternative medicine doctor, that would have sounded woo woo, right? Like, oh, that's not science. Yeah, the beauty of it is that we're now seeing how vital human connection is, not only for our mental health, but truly for our physical health. And what's scary is through the pandemic, I knew and felt like isolation is the next biggest problem that we're going to be experiencing. And having everyone not connected, there's so many repercussions that are going to happen as a result of being so isolated with humanity around the world. And I think what's interesting is like, we used to, like I said, just correlate isolation with mental health. And now they've correlated it with physical health. And whether it's blue zones to like any of these things that are coming out research wise of how important human connection and community is, right now, we have less human connection than we've ever had. And it's not just a pandemic thing. This is also a social media and a tech thing. You know, there was a article that came out a couple of years ago. It was a 20-year-old study. And what was interesting about it, which I didn't realize, is how much more alone time we have. And I think it doesn't matter. They analyzed every single relationship, whether it's like friend time, family time, partner time, colleague time, all of every sector of what type of different like human connections you would have. And then the amount of alone time the average individual has. And the amount of alone time drastically has increased over the past 20 years. And the amount of time with friends, family, partner, all of these things have drastically decreased. And that's now causing a lot of health problems. And I think it could be the root of a lot of our major health problems that we're experiencing right now. And people just don't know how to connect, you know, and I think that that's the fourth pillar that I talked about, is like these foundational pillars of health is human connection. Before even community, it's about being able to have relationships with another person. And I think we're not learning those skill sets anymore, which aren't teaching people to be set up for success. You can't just go home every day and start swiping on your phone and expect to be healthy. Like, we need to be around people. And I think for me, there's two things. You know, when I lived in LA and moved to New York about 3.5 years ago, I was never lonely, but then I realized how much alone time I had in LA. When I started comparing my lifestyle, because I'm always doing like audits of my life, environments, relationships, I started to realize like, oh wow, like I was always at my house. My house was like my safe place, but also like my sanctuary. Like, so it's where I felt like, you know, refueled, and it was my place to reset. But I think LA is also a place that is a little bit more isolating just because that's how it's set up. And then I moved to New York and I lived in this tiny little apartment. So I would only go home to sleep. That was it. And then I was like, wow, like New York makes me healthier, even though it's a lot more busy, maybe a lot more chaotic, maybe more stressful, which I think also helps. But it makes me walk more. I think walking is the most important thing we can do for our health. People don't even walk anymore. And that changes everything from, you know, getting movement in to digestion to, I mean, so many things that we could talk about, but it makes me more spontaneous. I think life needs to be spontaneous. And I'm a big, like, I think routines are also the most important thing,
100%.
but spontaneity with routines is also important.
Agreed.
And then New York is so special because there's no place in the world that you can connect with as many people as New York. And that's why the energy of the city is so alive, because it's more human connection. And what I would work on with patients and then even with myself is, as you start learning how to have healthy relationships and making sure that you can have one, then maybe you get two, and then you have three, like really investing in those people to strengthen those bonds. And once again, we can talk about that too and how I think you do that. But also I try to teach people how or work their way up to getting 5 different communities. I don't want you to be around one friend group. I want you to be around different types of people with different backgrounds and different perspectives. Because if you're only around one subset of people, you're going to have a blunted perception, or you're all going to think the same. And I think it's really important to constantly be challenged with your thought and to understand different perspectives and different walks of life. And a community could be as simple as you go to the same coffee shop every morning. The barista, they know your name, they know your order. That's one healthy interaction every single day. But that's a community, right? It's a way of like establishing your roots in a routine with a human connection. You don't even know them, but that it can be as simple as that. So I don't want people to think it has to be like a complex thing that need to be a part of a club, which those are all work as well. But starting small also makes impact.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Inspired. My name is Jonathan Cohen, and I have a quick favor to ask you. If you're getting any value out of this content, please take a second to subscribe to the channel. You help us reach more people, and you can also stay up to date with all the latest content coming your way. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you in the episode.
I'm listening to you speak and I'm taking in the insight because community at the beginning of last year became a massive springboard for me personally to meet new people, improve my performance, be spontaneous, shift the routine. And it's something that I've largely been focused on. I just spoke to Ann Malum recently, sold Solidcore for $98 million. And community is a big part of how she went about building her business and her brand. And I asked her about some of the pillars in building community and what matters. And that connection element, being able to connect with people, is at the foundation of that. And you talk about something that I talk about is this idea of building perfect days. What it is a practice of listing out what your perfect day looks like, and then you circle how many of those things you can do on a daily basis, and then build them deliberately into your life. So they become mental aid stations in your day that you can leverage to actively recover, if you will. Something that I do is have espresso in a ceramic cup to promote basic presence, reminding me to slow down and do the thing that's in front of me instead of take the paper cup and go on to the next thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's one example. When it comes to establishing that sense of presence in your life as a means to slow down and gain clarity. Burnout is a real symptom of some of the things that we're talking about in terms of pain. And, we could touch on anxiety, depression, all of these different things from a root cause perspective.
Yeah.
What do you think is at the foundation of why we experience pain, depression, anxiety?
I think what's important to note is that to be healthy, you must feel all things. Like when I moved to LA and I was 22 and I'm like, I'm going to be optimistic and I'm going to be only positive about everything in life. I blunted a certain part of my health by thinking that healthy was only feeling happiness and excitement. You need to feel all emotions. It's okay to be sad. How you handle those emotions and how you react to those emotions and how you move from them is what can be positive or negative. And I just think that when I'm analyzing these behaviors, people think I feel depressed, I can't feel depressed, or I feel anxiety, I can't feel anxiety. Like the goal is to not feel those things, right? I think when people are feeling those feelings, like no one wants to feel depressed, no one wants to feel anxious. But what we've done recently is just try to numb those feelings. However, when you feel depressed or you feel anxious, the body's telling you something. So I'm always trying to figure out why, and why would my body be telling me these signals? Because the body's so smart. Instead of trying to ignore what the body's telling you, what should happen when you feel depression is that's a sign that you probably need to change something in your life. It's pushing you more and more into a depressed state because it's trying to say, you have to change. It's like almost like shaking you of like, something in your life isn't working, and we're trying to give you the biggest warning sign possible to make you like actually start to change. And I think if we start looking at everything that we feel as a signal and trying to understand what is that signal trying to tell us, it's a really powerful tool to let us know when we need to work on change or work on adaptation if it's things that we can't change. And I know that's hard for a lot of people to hear. And like, listen, we've all felt depressed or sadness or anxious. And I think some people have felt it a lot more severe. But I look back at the hardest parts of my life, and now where I'm at in my mental state now, I'm actually most grateful for the hardest stages of my life because they made me change and grow. When I think about writing, I've tried to start writing my book, and I like the first, well, I don't know if I should be saying this, but like the first thing that I keep going back to is the thing that I would wish on no one is the thing that I'm most grateful for.
Mm.
And then when I start looking at all of the stages of resistance in my life, all those feelings, all of that, those challenges, all of that resistance sucked at that time. But now when I look back, I'm like, oh, wow, that happened because I needed to do this. And like feeling that time of like, wow, this really is challenging. Not sucks, not hard, challenging. I'm like, okay, this is a time of growth. And it's just like, buckle up. Whenever people are unhappy, and this is what I always work on with like friends personally, or even like unhappiness with myself, it's just that expectations aren't clear. So whenever sometime that someone feels a certain way, like, my friend did this, I'm so angry, or my partner did this, or my boss or my employee did this, the feeling is just there because expectations weren't clear. So if I worked on both sides, no matter if it's a friend or partner or colleague, it's like sitting down, learning how to communicate, and like, what are your expectations? What are my expectations? And like the root of the problem every time is, oh, we're not aligned with what we think the expectation is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just work on, all right, reset, align on what the expectations are, you can never be unhappy if expectations are clear, especially within a healthy relationship.
There's this idea that change gets us closer to who we're supposed to be. And accepting that reality allows us to make transitions and get through those challenging times smoother than we otherwise would. And the other thing that I want to talk about is happiness. I mean, it's a trending topic in a lot of ways. Dr. Arthur Brooks is leading authority, I would say, right now on it, and a guiding voice. And I've always found that since I've been on this fitness journey, trying to be a better me journey over the last, since 2010, so I guess 15 years now, that happiness is a choice. That happiness is a responsibility. Happiness is my responsibility. It is not my wife's responsibility for me to be happy. It's not my parents' responsibility for me to be happy. It's not my siblings' responsibility for me to be happy. It is on me. And I get to choose my reaction at all points. And it is an obligation that I have to maintain and also convey to my children that as much as I love them, it is also their responsibility to be happy. Obviously, they're toddlers and babies right now, so it's a very nuanced point that I'm making. But at some point, to empower them to realize that the more they own their decisions and take responsibility for their life, they'll be empowered to have that choice of happiness within their life, and then pass that on and make positive ripples in their own circles. So when resistance comes and it tries to challenge them in some way, shape, or form, they'll be prepared because they understand that their reaction is a choice. I was speaking with Jason Redman recently. He's a wounded Navy SEAL who had over 40 surgeries. And I asked him, after everything that he'd been through, experiencing warfare in Iraq, going through all those surgeries to his face, to his body, everywhere, what's the most important thing that he learned? And his answer was that we always have a choice. And the power to choose is what sets us apart, that free will, that ability to show up and decide who we want to be. And each moment, every moment is what makes the difference. I feel like you're such an incredible authority to talk about these things because as an entrepreneur and as a doctor and as someone who just loves these topics, understanding stress, burnout, depression, anxiety, all these symptoms, pain, when people hear pain is a signal and now they can consider it as, okay, this is a sign that I need to change or I need to grow, I need to adapt, I need to become more resilient. That starts to shift the conversation in their head. After they take that step of, okay, now my mindset's on point, what's the next step in guiding that conversation around pain, burnout, depression, anxiety, and the like? How can people evolve from there?
Once you start understanding, like you said, you control nothing except your reactions.
Mm-hmm.
You can't control anyone else. You can't control certain environments. I mean, to some extent, right? I think once you get in the space of understanding yourself and your uniqueness and your reactions, I feel like that is what really helps complete you. Once that you're at that state, remember, like, you're not always complete, because it's like you can be complete and then you should be working on growing that completeness. Then I think it's about paying it forward. You know, if we feel as though that human connection, or I feel as though human connection is one of the most important things for our health, to be able to then share a brighter version of yourself in every interaction is so important, because it's like every interaction of your day, the person that you hold the door for, it doesn't matter if it's not even someone that you have to speak with. You have an opportunity to leave a lasting impression on them and to make them feel better in that moment. Going and simply opening the door and smiling and asking how someone how their day is going. Right now, like, something so simple is also so impactful. So imagine if every interaction of your day, your goal is to then leave a good impression or leave a smile on someone's face. You know, it was so interesting. I was at this event over the weekend, and my friend had this monk that he's worked under for the past 20 something years. I won't go into all the names, but it was such an impactful event, 'cause it was listening to, it was the first time me ever interacting with a monk and just kind of hearing some of his philosophies. And it is so true that it's like us being able to like connect, share these moments, but very literally, like, imagine if every single interaction of your day, you were the positive light that you were sharing. And like, I mean that in the least woo way.
No, I hear you.
You know, like, you have an opportunity in every interaction, even if it's one interaction, you only saw that person one time your whole life. Imagine if every single day, as you're shining brighter and brighter, you're able to do that with every interaction in your life, which is challenging. But once again, maybe you can't always do that, but the goal would be to work towards that. Because I think if everyone in the world, in the current state that we're in, we need to do our part to be complete and to work on our reactions and our health and our happiness. And then the next thing is to be able to share that with other people. And the more that we can do that, that will create stronger communities, stronger impact, stronger relationships. And that's what we need now more than ever.
There's the data-backed approach to all this too, obviously.
Yeah.
And the metrics that guide this conversation, you are building a incredible business around. I've seen some of the technology that you have to offer. I want to step into the future with you for a second, because this is what really excites me. AI and wellness and the future, what it looks like, and some of the things that are guiding this conversation are technology. I'm personally in the technology industry. I work with a company close to NVIDIA, and I have and it's funny, I wanted to actually mention this sooner. Jensen, who's the founder of NVIDIA, talks about resilience and how suffering is important. And he doesn't know how someone can build resilience. He only wishes suffering upon people so that they can experience what it's like to build resilience, because there's almost no other way. But he says it in a very endearing way. And so I think that the transition here is, as we look at this future landscape around technology, AI, robotic massages, and some of the data that you have through your products in this particular facility. What does the future of AI and wellness look like, in your opinion?
We can't eliminate that the future is going to be fully taken over in a lot of ways with AI, and tech will only become more and more advanced. So instead of fighting it, we should be looking at, all right, knowing that we know maybe the digital side and the tech side of everything that's evolving is maybe not great for our health, right? I think of like social media tech, because we're saying that we're more digitally connected than ever before, which we thought was a big win, but now we're finding that's causing more isolation. Yeah. We should understand that only thinking about tech and AI and being more digitally connected, it's going to make certain aspects of that worse if we allow it. The thing I love about AI as the positive thing, and what I think, no matter what your perspective is on tech and AI, the expectation be, how is this helping humanity? And I think that health and healthcare is somewhat of a privileged thing. I've seen it on all ends of like what good healthcare looks like and what healthcare looks like with limited finances, and it's drastically different, and that's scary. For me to grow up in a small town and like think back at even the advice that I was getting from my doctors compared to what I know now and what I experience with other amazing doctors around the world is very different. I say like your body's your number one asset and you don't even know how it works, never mind how to take care of it. And that only you can make you healthy. And if I think of all of those things, it's strictly about lack of education. Can you imagine the most important thing in your life to amplify all the things that make you more resilient, make you more connected, make you be able to handle and grow is just through learning how to control your reactions and how to take care of yourself? No one today is teaching you that. And I think if we look at hospitals and healthcare, the average doctor visit in America is 8 minutes long. So this isn't by choice, it's based on demand. People are sicker than ever. It's harder and harder to get more time with patients. So I can't get to know you in 8 minutes. I can't get to understand your problems. I can't get to teach you and educate you. I have time to hear your symptoms and write a script, but that's also what we were trained to do. I'm not a medical doctor, but that's what medical doctors are trained to do. They studied medicine. You go, you understand what the symptom is, and it's, all right, here's the script, or here's the surgery. Mm-hmm. And I think the expectations is that you go to your doctor to be healthy. I don't think you go to your doctor to be healthy. You go to your doctor for emergencies, acute flare-ups, or if you need to be on medication for the most part. But I think, and like what my goal with Remedy isn't to have hundreds of clubs. My goal for Remedy is to create a brand that's a platform that can be providing free education. My goal right now is to build as much trust as possible with as many people we can touch so that people know that they can lean on us, not to sell a service and Remedy, to teach them in the future that what we know and what we learn, that we can pay that forward, right? And who's teaching people those foundational pillars of health? So a very long-winded answer is AI is going to make education and knowledge more accessible to everyone in the world. If I think that the biggest root cause of the problem of our health industry is lack of education, if I think professional and personal growth and development, the biggest thing missing is education. Mm-hmm. If you don't have access to be around certain people to learn and grow, or if you're not part of communities that teach you how to learn and grow, all of a sudden, now you can start learning. And I still think that more importantly, we should be learning through experiences in person and by people, but not everyone has that privilege. So I think I'm so excited about AI because all the things that I would want to teach my patients now, imagine just having someone for free in your pocket at all times to teach you. Imagine getting this complex blood work that in the future, you don't have to wait for a functional medicine doctor to do 8 hours of understanding every biochemical reaction in the body, but the trusted source of whoever controls the AI, right? We have to figure out safety and accuracy based on what's being inputted. But whoever really nails the largest database of the most clinical evidence to deliver the best education through AI is going to change the current health state of the world. And that's what gets me so excited about Remedy, because I'm like, that's all I want to do. And yeah, and I just think there's a lot of things that could bring AI the wrong direction, because I think it could make us not connect as much. I think if you're only interacting with a robot or AI, it will create more and more isolation problems, which will impact your health. So I think the goal for everyone is use AI to learn, but don't use AI to disconnect. And I think that is the pros and cons of level setting the expectations around the future of AI.
It's great that you started the conversation by managing expectations. That you alluded to it earlier. That's where a lot of communication goes haywire. Level setting the conversation about AI at the outset helps anyone, even me, understand. Like, I see this stuff on a daily basis and I'm so excited for where things are going, but that's because I see a vision for a more connected, more understood, educated world where people can be empowered to make choices that they can have confidence in, are actually informing how they eat, how they sleep, how they train, how they communicate, how they interact with people around them, how they interact with the environment around them. And to have a guided conversation, a meaningful conversation, even if it's guided by technology, for better or worse, it puts us on the right path in a lot of ways. So I'm a very like futurist. Like, I don't see it as a or, I see it as an and.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like to make it binary, as if we have to choose. And so I see it as a partner for growth rather than just this tool that's going to disconnect me from the world.
But imagine if happiness is, a result of lack of expectations, and you're thinking of, how do I use AI to teach me to have better relationships?
Oh.
How do I use AI to learn how to communicate a difficult situation to make a positive outcome? How do I use AI to teach myself how to change those thoughts in my head, from pain to movement cures,
100%.
from stress to resilience? If you start thinking of all these things and you can provide examples, you can start teaching using AI to then transform and learn how to connect. And I think that's what really is exciting, because not only connecting with others, but also learning how to connect with you. So I think you're spot on. That gives me a lot of hope, because we would need something so drastic and so transformative to get us back to where we need to be.
There's a lot of upcoming technologies around cognitive behavioral therapy being integrated into chatbots or avatars to help take care of people in those moments where maybe they don't have access to any other kinds of therapy. And this idea of leveraging AI as a tool to have hard conversations and shift them into growth conversations, run through scenarios so you can develop deeper connections. I love that idea of using it as a partner to be like, all right, kind of role play this with me so I can go and talk to this person that I really don't want to talk to, but know I need to, so I can adapt, grow, become more resilient, build my body, build my mind, develop deeper connections, and then leverage that for the next one. Everything that we're talking about here today, I feel like I've stepped into the future coming into this facility for the second time. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people have talked about it as an oasis or as this place of peace. But thinking about this from your perspective in 2012, when you started the idea for Remedy Place, and now seeing the vision for, how many is it? 5 locations? 4 locations. I'm sure 5 are on the horizon. It's LA, New York, Boston.
2 in New York.
2 in New York.
Yeah.
And to see how you've built this thing out and continue to build it out and bet on yourself, There's a question that I pose to all my guests that I want to pose to you before we close this thing out. If the future version of yourself from 10 years from now were to fly in and offer you some advice in order to get there, what do you think he would say to you?
This might sound like a terrible idea. I don't know if I'd want advice from 10 years. I think everything in your life happens how it's supposed to happen. And your job is to just be a good person, care, work really hard, and be passionate about it. I would never want to change myself from the future. Or if I was even go back and I wouldn't want to give advice to myself at 2012 because that might have changed, like either way, right? Either direction. Because I think it would probably change my life experiences, and I wouldn't want to change anything in my life, because everything, good or bad, has shifted a learning or perspective that's made me who I am. And sometimes that's really why I don't really listen to I think I try not to be influenced too much by other people's thoughts or stories. Like, I don't want to read a how-to book on how to do my life. Helpful for a lot of people, but I also think that your life is your life and your journey is your journey. I think everyone around you should motivate and inspire you, but your goal of life should not be to follow anybody. It's to build strong connections with them and allow them to build you up. But I think a lot of the times we look at high-profile people to figure out how do I do what they did? And I think that's actually the wrong way to look at it. I think it's really thinking of what is my uniqueness, and going into, like you said before, about being present. We all have different purpose to be here. And I think the healthier we are, the more that you can actually dive into what your purpose is. I know it's really hard. I didn't understand what people meant by purpose, what's my purpose on earth when I was younger. And I'm starting to realize that it's the more that you can be present within your own thoughts as a result of not your environment or other people's thoughts is where your uniqueness will come out. And the healthier you are, the more you'll be able to tap into your unique perspective and your unique thoughts. And I think that's so important because that's the value that you get to bring to the world. And if we can just focus on figuring out more and more ways to figure out who we are, that's the purpose that we're supposed to have, if that makes sense.
100% it does. And it's exactly why I wanted you on this podcast, because you had this vision for something, you built it out, and you tapped into your uniqueness to establish purpose. And something that I talk a lot about is purpose through service. If you don't know what your purpose is, go figure out how you can give.
Yeah.
So this way it can make space for more to come in so you can guide that conversation. Jonathan, I've had so much fun with you here today, man. You've learned so much. You've added so much value to the community. Where can people keep up with your journey?
Yeah, I'm trying to get better on social media. My agency's like, John, you need to post and do more. And for me, I'm in a state where I'm just really busy at this moment. So it's harder and harder for me to put out as much as I want to put out. But I think to at least know and see as I do more podcasts or more talks, I'll be putting all of those on my social media channels, just at Dr. Jonathan Leary. And I hope that my platforms just become more and more of a place where people can go to learn about what they can do and adapt or whatever they need to do in life, no matter who they are, where they are, what they have access to. And then, of course, Remedy Place, our social media, will be leaning into that as well.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jonathan Leary, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you got any value, subscribe, follow Jonathan's journey, and keep up with Remedy Place on all social channels. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, my name is Jonathan Cohen, and this is Inside the Inspired.